Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, Francesca Sipma, who's here to share with us her new book, Unblock Your Purpose, Breathwork, Intuition, and the Flow State. So are you ready to release childhood blocks, achieve flow state, and discover your purpose for success and fulfillment? Well, today's guest is going to share with us how to do just that. So Francesca Sipma is an author, founder and CEO of Mastery, the creator of Hypno Breathwork, and an international speaker who offers courses and training programs for C-suite executive, world-renowned producers, celebrities, artists, and athletes. She has led sessions for Deloitte, Snap, Upwork, and Athletic Brewing, and her work has been featured in Bloomberg, Forbes, NBC, and ABC. So welcome to the show, Francesca Sipma.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my goodness, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this. What inspired you to write this book?
It was really based off of my own journey of discovering my life purpose and discovering how misaligned I was in the goals that I thought would bring me joy and success. And that once I healed some of my past relationships and gained this new clarity and freedom, I could channel it to be of service to others and find just a completely new level of fulfillment in my life.
Well, I think that's so impressive, especially you start chapter 1. Let's just start right there. Heal the past. And Isn't that the truth? We're always kind of carrying around these little luggage bags of all of our past hurts and pains. And do these tend to block us in our present and our future?
Absolutely. I think that every past relationship or life event that we've gone through that has created different coping mechanisms or protective strategies or ego is an event that allows us to disconnect from ourselves and from our truth and from what truly brings us joy. So it really starts with kind of digging a little bit into the past so that we can heal these moments and free up our energy and find out how we can channel that into giving back, contributing to something greater than ourselves, and finding more prosperity and clarity and creativity and all the beautiful things that life should be made up of.
So was there a specific instance that had you even start this path? Because I think a lot of times people don't really think about their purpose until they get to like this precipice of a point and they're like, okay, I need to make some life changes.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I had been working in New York City at one of the top advertising agencies for a decade, and I had really reached a lot of my career goals and what I thought would make me happy. And I found myself having just traveled business class to Cape Town, running a multi-million-dollar shoot, living the life that I thought I wanted, and just feeling really empty and internally miserable. And I realized that this is a really common pattern for a lot of people is we're chasing and grinding and hustling to reach these goals. And then we get there and we realize that they're actually not the things that will make us happy. So it was sort of getting to the peak of what I thought would be joy and then discovering I'm really insatiable and I'm constantly chasing the next promotion and the next trip and the next guy, and something's fundamentally broken and it's time to go inward.
So how did you map that out? What was the next thing that you did?
Well, when you try all the external things and when you have the material success, you have to change things up. You have to do what you haven't done before. So for me, I started reading and I discovered The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And that book really changed my life because it taught me how to stop being anxious about the future or dwelling on the past and start living in the moment. And then he also recommended a book called Living in the Light by Shakti Gawain. And in that book, I learned to really listen to my intuition and follow my body. And when I did that, the only thing that felt good to me was going to Bali and booking a one-way trip and discovering a 7-day breathwork retreat. And in that breathwork retreat, the sessions were so powerful and they took me so far beyond my analytical and logical mind and into my subconscious. And that was really the changing point for me. That trip is what completely changed my life.
For those that are new to breath work, what does that entail? What does that look like? 'Cause I think for some people, if they have never experienced it, they may think it's a little something different than what it actually is.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different styles of breath work. The one that I particularly work with is called hypno breath work, and it's basically using your breath to clear out any suppressed emotions or stagnant energy that's been lodged in your nervous system or that you're holding deep in your subconscious, your body, and your psyche. And then we layer on hypnotic suggestions, which is really just vocal cues to help people concentrate their mind and discover what limiting belief has been holding them back, what subconscious blockage needs to be reprogrammed and rewired. And then we bring in visualization or visioning so that you can mentally rehearse who you want to be, what your next action step is, what that feels like in your body. And it's a hyper efficient 22-minute process that is truly transformative.
Would you say that there was like one aspect of this journey that really stood out to you as you were starting to get into your flow state?
Yeah, I think the relationship with my mom and what I discovered in a breathwork journey around that was the catalyst for me. I thought I was extremely self aware. I had been in therapy. I had read a bunch of books. But when the spiritual teachers told me to do breathwork on my mom, I was very resistant. I told them, I don't have any issues with my mom. She's amazing. She's a saint. My father's the one that I want to go deep into. And what I discovered in that breathwork journey with my mom is that I had been taking her for granted for decades, that I had completely dismissed her life, her sacrifices, the journey she had as a Vietnamese refugee, how she worked 3 jobs in order to provide me a life with no scarcity. And when I realized how disconnected I was from the truth of our relationship, I knew that it was a massive opportunity for me to bring this work to the world and help other people become more self aware and heal their relationships.
You're so vulnerable in this book, especially when you're talking about your first retreat in Bali. Can you share a little bit about that with our listeners?
Yeah, I went into the retreat feeling like I really knew myself and just wanted some clarity on external things. I remember the first day being like, should I keep dating this guy or go back to my ex? Should I live in San Francisco or New York City? And they were like, I think you need to go a bit deeper and get to know yourself again. And I didn't quite know what that meant until my very first breathwork session where I saw my inner child and I got this very clear message that I was too hard on myself. And I just remember bawling on the floor. I was crying so hard and realizing that I was very disconnected with my conscious and my subconscious mind. And then every day after that was a new revelation and a new breakthrough. The second session, I saw myself very feminine and graceful, sort of floating around the meadows, and that this tough girl New York exterior was a facade and a protective mechanism. And then I explored multiple relationships. I had the big session around my mom. And then at the end of the retreat, I birthed an entirely new business. I had all of this clarity, all of this intuition, and it connected really creatively into this next venture, which ended up becoming my company, Mastery. And I just realized that when we heal emotional blockages, and especially with this very efficient and effective modality of breath work, we can unlock our purpose, unlock new clarity, unlock new freedom. And yeah, it was a really life changing experience for me.
Now, you mentioned intuition, and I'd love for you to define that for us and the role that it plays in helping people kind of find their true purpose.
Yeah, I think if I had one takeaway from this book and also for your listeners, it would be to act on your intuition. So your intuition is this deep inner knowing. It's this wisdom that lives within you and it provides guidance and it gives you these little nudges and pings into a higher spiritual path. So for me, listening to your intuition means getting really still or using your breath, which is a direct line to hearing that infinite intelligence, that inner guidance. And then it's having the courage to take action on it, to follow it, to trust it, to execute on it. And once you do that, your life will start to unfold in miraculous new ways. You will start to co create with the universe. You will have more originality, more self trust, more nuance, more color.
So, how can we tell if we've got blocks for our parents? How does that show up?
Notice your emotions and notice your triggers, especially around the holidays. I think a lot of the feelings that we have, whether it's stressed out or, not setting our boundaries or feeling sadness or feeling grief, if we really dig into the emotions that our parents bring up for us, a very common denominator I'll find is that we hold a lot of unconscious guilt. We hold some repressed shame in our body for maybe not seeing them, for maybe not recognizing them, or for maybe having deep resentment towards them, but not actually having compassion for their stories and their journeys and maybe how they were taught to parent us or how to love. So observe your emotions, observe any discomfort that you have or resistance that you have about going home for the holidays and spending this time with them, and see if you can dig a little bit deeper and gain some self-awareness of what the root of that is.
I think minus, abuse, it's interesting because our parents always are doing the best that they can with the information that they have, that they've been given. And I love how in your book you talk about just kind of tapping into this level of compassion so that we're able to kind of see things in a different way.
Yeah, and it's not always for them, like sometimes it's just for you to free up all of the energy and emotion that you're holding towards that resentment or towards that anger if they didn't show up for you in the right way. I definitely didn't have, a cookie cutter experience with my father, but when I would take it to breathwork journeys and see his father and how he was treated and that he showed up for me more than he was used to, then I began to have some forgiveness. And when I understood that maybe he wasn't completely developed in terms of how to parent a child, then I knew that it wasn't about me. It wasn't that I wasn't worthy of love and that I wasn't deserving of having that consistent parent figure in my life. It was just about what he could give me with what he knew. And so the process really came about reparenting myself and giving myself the attention and the love and the nurture that I needed. And that was extremely healing for me. So while I had compassion for him and it definitely changed our relationship and it changed the energy of our dynamic, it was also just incredibly healing for me. And that's something that I think everybody can take away from that.
Your book is filled with so much research and science. And one of the things I found interesting is you talk about the only way out is through when it comes to our trauma. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think a lot of us think that we're master compartmentalizers and that the things that have happened to us and have shaped us or have made us strong will just not show their face if we don't think about it and if we avoid it. And that's just not the way that the body or the subconscious mind works. Everything is really stored and the body really remembers, and it will show up in your relationships and the decisions that you make and how you view yourself. So, the way to truly heal and to feel internally free and to live in alignment is to face some of those moments, is allowing yourself to feel through that pain. It's not living in the emotion, it's just allowing it to come up, noticing it, observing it, and then breathing it out or releasing it. And we have to go through that process so that it doesn't remain stuck in our body, it doesn't remain lodged in our nervous system or in our subconscious mind and then play out in a variety of ways in our career decisions or in our romantic relationships. So the way to move through it is to feel through that pain, and the more we feel, the more we heal.
So after we work through the blocks that we have through our childhood and with our parents, what does the other side of that look like?
The other side of that is light. The other side of that is clarity. The other side of that is creativity and sometimes even psychic ability. You start to become very clear and attuned to yourself, your body, what brings you joy, what makes you feel gratitude, how you can turn that outward. But we have to free up everything that's been repressed and we have to free up those emotional blockages. And then, really interesting connections and intersections start to be made. And that's really the purpose of the book, is to show people how their skills and their passions and the obstacles that they've been through, the challenges that they've faced, can all connect and be turned outward to be of service. And when we're of service to others, when we're contributing to something greater, then life starts to get really fun. It starts to feel really good. We're less weighed down by anxiety and fear and depression, and we feel more lit up to show up every single day and to give our gifts.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Francesca Sipma in regards to her new book, Unblock Your Purpose: Breathwork, Intuition, and the Flow State. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an author, speaker, or expert who is looking for more publicity? Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up for free interview requests from shows looking for guests. Radio Guest List is the #1 free booking resource for radio, podcasts, and TV talk shows who are looking for experts like you right now. Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up today to get the visibility you deserve.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special. When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed, and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest, Francesca Sipma, who's here to share with us her new book, Unblock Your Purpose: Breathwork, Intuition, and the Flow State. So many of our listeners are transitioning from a corporate environment to pursue their passion. What are some of the things that you think that this book will not only address, but help them with?
I think the biggest piece around that is actually around finances. I think that the hardest transition to make when you're going from a very secure corporate job and a biweekly paycheck and the 401k and the bonuses into doubling down on yourself is to reprogram your relationship to money. So a lot of the things that were coming up for me when I went from the corporate environment to becoming a breathwork coach was, how am I going to secure the same lifestyle and the same income that I'm used to? And it took digging deep into my subconscious blocks around money. And some of the things I found were, I saw that I could be really irresponsible with money because my mom always protected me from financial scarcity. And I saw that I had an inconsistent relationship with money where it would go as fast as it came in because of what I witnessed from my father and how he modeled his relationship to money. So there's a bit of a reprogramming and a rewiring that needs to happen in your mind from those consistent, steady paychecks to being able to stay present and find new portals for abundance and believing in yourself that you can continue to make that happen. That I think is the biggest obstacle people struggle with when they transition.
It's interesting when we look at where our finances are and the spending that we do, like what's really important and the things that maybe aren't so necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's another thing that, practices like breath work and meditation can help us with, because when we're very still, we're more intuitive, we're more in alignment with our soul. And I'll sometimes take it to a breathwork session and be like, is this investment intuitive or is this from my ego? Am I chasing something right now? Is this material for status or is this going to help me in my purpose? And when you can feel into your body for those decisions, you'll be much more grounded and you'll have much more confidence and conviction in the things that you invest in.
In your book, you talk about entering the flow state. And I'd
Mm.
love for you to share about that with us. Like what is that and what does that look like?
Yeah, flow state is optimal consciousness. It's when you're in the zone. Things are effortlessly flowing. You feel challenged, yet you lose sense of time. Creative connections are being made. And I always like to say it's when productivity meets alignment. So I discovered flow state when I was in that transition to becoming a breathwork coach. And because of my advertising and marketing background, I would lay out just like a war room, my business plan. And I had on one huge white sheet of paper the physiological benefits, and then I had the spiritual benefits, and I had the psychological benefits, and I had messaging strategy and partnership and content ideas. And then I would breathe and allow different connections to be made. So I knew how to build my business, how to scale it, how to acquire new customers, different marketing and intuitive ideas. So, flow state is just this really beautiful, euphoric place where you're accessing altered states of consciousness and you're making new creative connections. It's where invention and innovation happens.
I love how in your book you share about different instances where you were really in your best way trying to make things move and move forward and keep moving. And I think we all do this where it's like we have a goal in mind, we see that goal and we think, okay, I'm going to keep focusing on this and it's going to work no matter what. And I like how you bring together how this flow state works in order for us to really determine whether or not this is something for us or not.
Yeah, and it's usually when you are forcing, when you're really attached to an outcome and you find yourself in a hustle or a grind, that maybe that's a time for you to step back and to be a little bit more self-reflective. And I always like to think about, if I had the exact thing that I want right now, if I had the exact goal that I'm striving for, would I feel happy? Would I feel accomplished? Would I feel content? And that's a really good barometer to see if you're chasing or forcing outcomes, or if you need to get back into alignment with your values and enjoy the journey a bit more than the outcome.
I love that. I think everyone should have that on their mirror. Because how often we're like, okay, I've got this goal, I'm going to make it happen. And sometimes it is like that, square peg going into the round hole. It is
Yeah.
not going to work no matter what. And it really, it's kind of for our best interest.
Marianne, I actually had that experience with this book like several times. There was one point where I was really stuck on the writing. I just remember there was one chapter, it was just like not flowing. And I was like so disciplined in my habits when I was writing this. I was like, this chapter is going to be done on this day and this paragraph will be done here. And I was really forcing the process. And I remember calling one of my breathwork coaches and being like, man, I'm just stuck. And can you flow me? And the shift that needed to happen for me was I was getting caught up in sounding smart. I was getting caught up in being a really good writer instead of putting together the message that others could receive and really add value for them. And I had to shift my focus from being internally focused to just spreading the message externally. And that was the unlock for me. And I've come across that multiple times, that when I'm forcing and, like you just said, the square peg in the round hole, it's a moment of that requires self-awareness and introspection. Just recently too, I was talking to New World about this, to Kim, and I was like, man, I'm really trying to, create something with this book launch, but I could feel myself going back to that old New Yorker where it was about the goal and it was about being really productive. And I was like, I should be enjoying this process. I should be enjoying the conversations that I'm having with people about this. It's really about the message being received, and it's not about my external success, if that makes sense.
One of the things I found so fascinating about your book is it really can be used for pretty much every aspect of our lives. You talk about using it in relationships. And this one thing kind of caught me. This one quote: "He's not your type, he's your conditioning." Oh
Mm.
my gosh. Can you share about that with us?
Oh yeah, I know. I have full body chills as you just said that. So I went to this seminar where Kute Blackson, the teacher, said that quote, and just stopped me in my tracks. And I just thought about my history with people, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am chasing emotionally unavailable men to prove my worth to them, because as soon as I convert one, I believe that will heal my relationship to my father. And that unlock for me was like 100 light bulbs going off in my mind. And since then, I've taken that concept into my breathwork sessions, where if you're breathing with me, I'll play, like a love ballad. Maybe I'll play some Adele or some Sam Smith. And then I'll say, look at your relationship patterns. Look at all the people that you've been with in your life and see them in a row, or see a relationship that has unresolved feelings. And immediately I saw that I had this pattern where I would date really nice guys, like really sweet, loving guys. And then I would get very bored. And then I would go for the toxic bad boy. And I just did this dance. It was like nice guy, bad boy, nice guy, bad boy. And they were fairly short lived. And I saw that until I became whole, until I integrated both parts of myself, I wasn't going to attract someone that was whole. And so I had to do a lot of breath work on dismantling my own fears and relationships and contempt I had, with men from my past experiences. And when I did that and I was able to visualize what a healthy love looked like, and more importantly, what it felt like, and I needed to reprogram that love could feel safe in my body and in my nervous system, because up until that point, I had an association that love was painful, and love was struggle, and love was sacrifice, and men cheat and they'll disappoint you and they'll break your heart. And I had to reprogram all of those things. And as soon as I did, I met this extremely conscious, spiritual, beautiful man from New Zealand. And he was not my type, which was a great thing. And now we use breath work in our relationship all the time, when we need to see each other's perspective, when we need to have more compassion for one another, when we need to dissolve our triggers. And it has truly been the biggest blessing and one of the biggest changes in my life.
Well, how exciting is that, to be in a relationship where you're actually seen?
Mm. Oh, it's the most healing feeling ever.
That's just so phenomenal. I know there are probably many people going, okay, I need to start this breath work right now. I mean,
Yeah.
because here we are going through this state of loneliness, this epidemic of loneliness. It's been going on for, I think, a lot longer than people are talking about. But I think a lot of it is that we do get stuck in these norms where we're like, okay, well, this is a type, a person I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And we get stuck in that.
We created a hypno breathwork session around that, because I felt really strongly that we are just a bit closed-minded about who we think that we should be with. And one of the biggest learnings in my relationship now is our relationship was really built. It was built on me staying very present. There was multiple times, especially in the beginning, that I wanted to run, because that was my default setting. And I was just a habitual runner. And when things got too intimate, I wanted to avoid these feelings at all costs. And I had to stay really present in it. And even when I was absolutely sure, like, I don't think I'm supposed to do this anymore, I would go into breath work and it'd be like, no, stay, have a vulnerable have a vulnerable conversation with him, communicate your heart, be more open, be more feminine. And so we developed these hypno breathwork sessions around some of those emotions that I went through. And now on my app, on Mastery app, we have an entire topic on love. And whether it's self-love or whether it's trusting love again, or it's healing heartbreak, all of those sessions are available to anyone who feels called to them. And they're 20 minutes, they're extremely healing. And a lot of times my partner and I will do them together when we're in conflict.
So I know we've talked about intuition earlier. So how does this integrate with the breath work?
Great question. So the end of every single hypno breathwork session is, what is your next intuitive action step towards that goal or as your highest self? So basically in the hypno breathwork session, you're unblocking emotion, you're reprogramming subconscious beliefs, you're visualizing the future self, and then you always get that one very concentrated, focused question. So you know how to integrate. So you know how to take it from an internal experience to shaping your external reality. And that always comes from one intuitive action step. And when you have the courage to take that action step immediately after, as soon as you come out of breathwork, it'll be like, send that one email or have that conversation or apologize or post this thing on social media, send this out to your mom, whatever that intuitive action step is, you take that. And if you can do that every day, if you can breathe and get clear for 20 minutes every day, take the intuitive action step, those action steps will plant seeds. And they will compound and they will allow you to keep living a life in alignment and be so intentional about co-creating what it is that you want.
Where do you think most people get stuck when they're going through this process of finding their blocks so that they can live their purpose?
I think they get stuck on the intuitive action piece because it'll be very clear and loud in breath work. And then they'll come out and their analytical mind will be like, oh, I can't send that. I can't have that conversation with that person. I can't tell my partner this, XYZ. And they'll second guess it. They'll out logic it. They'll get really analytical about it. And they'll talk themselves out of listening to their intuition. So in my workshops or in my retreats, that action step has to happen immediately. You're basically still discombobulated coming out of a hypnobirthing journey. And I'm like, send the letter, let's shoot out the text message, have the conversation, because that's when we have the most courage. That's when we're still in that energy, connected to the breath, and we can do it with more conviction. So I think the intuition and being able to follow through with that is usually the most difficult for people, which is why I tell them to do it immediately after a session.
Do you have a practice that you can walk our listeners through that they can use to kind of activate their intuition today?
Yeah, I would say take 2 inhales and 1 exhale and do it in a circular motion. So inhale into your belly, inhale into your heart, exhale. And keep breathing just like that, focusing on one intention, focusing on one question, focusing on one goal. Or you can just say, why am I so triggered about what that girl said? Or where is the anxiety living in my body? Whatever's going on in your life, focus your mind around that one thing, breathe to it, and let it start to dissipate from your body. And oftentimes you'll feel a lot lighter, a lot clearer, or you'll get an answer that will be very revealing to you.
Do people ever get to a point where it's just so overwhelming that they have to continue the breathing process?
Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes, for people, 3 hypno breathwork sessions is what they need to drop in because they've just been blocking their emotions and numbing out for so long that they can't get to those more emotional insights or colors or downloads or messages. So I always say, be consistent with it. The breath is always moving energy. It's always unblocking. It's always clearing. So the more consistent we can be with it, the easier it will become to drop in and to get those answers and to get those intuitive action steps.
Can you share with us some of the other practices that you have that people can participate in?
Yeah, I'm really consistent about my hypno breathwork every morning. And then I do like a Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation right after it. I find that to be the most effective 2-part 1-2 punch for me to feel extremely clear that my cognition, my decision making, my problem solving, my articulation, everything is on 100 every single morning. So I'm really big into breathwork and meditation.
So do you work with people outside of the San Diego area? How does that work?
Yeah, I've actually now trained over 120 hypnobreathwork practitioners, and they are global. So we actually have a pretty decent footprint in Europe at the moment, as well as a few coaches in Asia. So I have a lot of different facilitators and instructors who hold one-on-one sessions, who have their own workshops and group courses. And then I have my signature Bali retreat that happens every summer, as well as Mastery app, which makes this work digital and accessible to anyone around the world.
So, aside from the book, Unblock Your Purpose, there are many different ways that people can participate. You've got courses and certifications and also retreats.
Yes, absolutely.
Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
You can find me on Instagram at Francesca Sipma, or you can visit my website, francescasipma.com.
Well, Francesca, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
I loved it. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.